Today we're going to divide using the standard algorithm. And in doing this, it is very important that we place our first number, our first digit, over the correct spot. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be looking at our dividend, 144, divided by our divisor, which is 6. So 6 goes into 144 how many times? We do this by looking at the first digit first. 1. 6 cannot go into 1. 1 cannot be divided by 6. So because 1 cannot be divided by 6, we have to then extend our 1 out to 14. 14. 6 can go into 14. 6. This is where our facts come really in handy if we know our multiplication facts. With using the standard algorithm, you kind of have to know your multiplication facts. Otherwise, you'll get the quotient wrong. So 6 goes into 14. I know that 6 can go into 14 2 times. So I'm going to put my 2 above the 4. It's very important that my 2 gets placed above the 4 because that's the first thing that that 6 can go into. So 6 times 2 is then 12. I can then subtract. As I subtract here, 4 subtract 2 is going to be 2. 1 subtract 1 is going to be 0. And then it's very important here that we bring down the 4. So the 4 drops down, and we add a 4 there. So now we have 24. 24 then divided by 6. Now I know that 4 times 6 is 24. Once again, if you don't know your multiplication, your multiplication facts, the standard algorithm here is not very helpful in dividing. So 24 is 6 times 4, so I can put my 4 up top above the 4. 4 times 6 is then 24. I then subtract again. 4 subtract 4 is 0. 2 subtract 2 is 0. Sorry. 2 subtract 2 is 0. My quotient then becomes 24 because 24 times 6 is going to equal 144. On this next one here, we have a divisor of 2 and a dividend of 287. And we're trying to figure out what our quotient would be. So on this second one here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the 2, and we're going to look at the hundreds place here. We have a 2. Can 200 be divided by 2 equally? And yes, it can. So my first digit is going to be placed above the 2. So 2 times 1 is 2. So I can then subtract that. That gives me 0. We then bring down our 8. So now we have 8. 2 goes into 8. Once again, you have to know your facts here. 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm going to put a 4 up here. 4 times 2 is 8. Which then allows me to subtract again. And 8 subtract 8 is 0. Now I have to bring down my 7. 2 times 4 is 8. It's not 7, so let's go down 1 from 4, so we'll go 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Put our 6 down here. Subtract 7 subtract 6 is 1. 2 cannot go into 1. 1 cannot be divided by 2. So 1 becomes our remainder. So our quotient is then 143 remainder 1. And this is once again using the standard method for dividing. On this next one, we're going to take 525 and we're going to divide using our divisor of 3 and try to get our quotient. Now once again, it's very important that we place the first digit in the correct spot. If 3 can go into 5, then it has to be placed above the 5 in the hundreds position. So it's very important that we place those in the correct spot. So let's go ahead and solve this. And we're going to take our 3 goes into 5. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. That's going to be too much. So we're going to have to go with 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Once again, we subtract. 5 subtract 3 gives us a 2. We then bring down the 2. So 22. 3 times, once again, it really makes you definitely need to know your multiplication facts in order to divide this way. I could say 3 times 6 is 18, but that's not going to be correct for this because it's not close enough to 22. So I have to use 3 times 7. 3 times 7 is 21. I can then subtract. 2 subtract 1 is 1. 2 subtract 2 is 0. And then I have to bring down my 5. 15 divided by 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 5 is 15. I then subtract. I get 0. 15 subtract 15 is 0. That gives me a quotient of 175. So 175 times 3 is going to equal 525. And this is how we divide using this standard algorithm and how we place the first digit. Once again, using this method, it is very important that we know our multiplication facts. For this reason, I actually prefer dividing using partial quotients, where it's not definitely necessary to know all of your multiplication facts. But with this method, you do need to know all your multiplication facts.